Here's something that nobody tells leaders. December isn't slow because you failed. No, December is slow because the season has changed. However, this is when a lot of leaders begin to panic. And they panic because they go, this is a warning sign of something bad. And so we need to ramp it up. We need to create momentum. We need to put pedal to the metal. We need to work harder than we ever have before. However, in the seasons that are slow, when the leader panics, this is when, well, a lot of the biggest damage occurs. I'm Tom Goodlett, and I help leaders navigate pressure, growth, and uncertainty every day. And something we know about leadership is that great leaders know when to act, but they also know when not to. And so instead of going into a panic, let me give you a framework that you can use when the season is slow. It's not the P word, panic. No, there's 3 other P words I want to walk you through. And that is how to pause, how to ponder, and plan. Let's be honest. Slow seasons can feel uncomfortable. Why? Because the silence will often expose things that motion hides. When the meetings slow down or the sales calls begin to thin out or the emails just aren't pinging like they used to, well, this is a lot of times where we're simply left with clarity. And clarity can be scary. It reminds me of my daughter who is an avid gardener, and she has this box garden in our backyard. And there's several times where she's just planting in the dirt seeds that will later become delicious vegetables for us to eat. But there's always that season where it just looks like dirt and it just looks like nothing's happening. However, below the surface, this is where the roots are forming. This is where the base of the plant is establishing itself so that what she has planted can later be extremely fruitful and we can all enjoy it. And so sometimes those slow seasons, these are the times where the roots of our decisions are beginning to plant themselves in order to be great later. But that can be scary. And let me ask you, what are you afraid of in the slow seasons? Are you afraid of losing momentum? Or are you really afraid of the truth that this, well, silence might expose? Now, before we panic, let's instead take this opportunity to pause. Now, when I say pause, I don't mean to disengage. No, I mean to actually intentionally create space, to just stop for a moment, to maybe block out some time intentionally on your calendar, maybe to cancel some less important meetings and appointments. Maybe it means delaying some quote unquote important decisions. This isn't being lazy. This is actually setting yourself up for discernment. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is to decide to do nothing. Once you've decided to pause, well, now is a great opportunity to then ponder, to start thinking through the past seasons, what gained you and what decisions drained you. It's also a great opportunity to do 3 types of thinking. As my friend and colleague Todd Hopkins talks about, there is strategic thinking, critical thinking, and eternal thinking. So it's a good time to, well, think about the strategies that worked and didn't work in the last few seasons, and to see what you're observing and seeing as a result. To do some critical thinking, to see what does the data reveal? What do the numbers show? And to do some eternal thinking. What has God been trying to tell me? What has He been placing upon my heart? You see, the goal of pondering isn't to start looking at problems and do some solving. No, it's to do some seeing. When you take the time to ponder, you'll begin to see the opportunities and your obstacles more clearly. This then provides the time to plan. Now, you don't have to figure out every strategic step. You don't have to figure out every detail of the plan, but it's time to start getting ahead and sorting through ideas, to start picking out what might be goals or milestones that will move you forward. The opportunity is during the slow season to get ahead, trusting that the seeds will soon sprout and that the harvest won't be far behind. Now, when you develop your plan, you are going for a 10-month plan. That's right. You want to hit those goals and hit those milestones within 10 months. Why? Because more slow seasons are going to arrive. So we might as well plan for them. That's right. If we do this, we know that when the slow season shows up, we don't want to panic. Instead, we want to pause, ponder, and plan. And if we do this, then these slow seasons won't seem like a problem, but rather a gift. How do you do this? That's the question I get sometimes from people when they talk about, well, they ask me, how do I kind of do my plan for the year? So I want to share something, and forgive me if this is a little less presentational and a little more conversational. But I just kind of want to give you some bonus information if you're interested on how do I, Tom Goodlett, well, each year during the slow season, how do I start planning? And I want to start with this. I want to start with a story. And this is a story I heard comedian Martin Short talk about from his own personal life. And the story goes that when Martin Short was early in his career, he wasn't the famous actor and comedian at that point in time. He was kind of getting his start. He was in Toronto, and he would go to take the train into Toronto each day to go do auditions, but he wasn't able to find work. He would go audition, but they wouldn't take him for the part and so forth. And he talked about how for about 2 months, he just would go in each day, take the train into the city. But every time he went to the train station, the train would either be delayed or it would leave without him. He'd have to wait for the next train. He could never quite make it where the train and him would sync up. And so he just seemed, for 2 months, he worried about getting work. That's all he wanted to do was just get work for his career. And he just figured the day that him and the train could sync up would be the day he'd get an audition where they would actually accept him for the part. Well, it turns out eventually after 2 months, Martin Short got work. And while he was working, he thought back and reflected back and said, you know what? I really just wasted 2 months of my life just waiting to get work and doing really nothing else. And he decided he never wanted to waste months of his life like that again. And so Martin Short came up with 9 categories. He calls them as 9 categories. And he thinks about his life in kind of like earning a GPA. In other words, if I can't get an A in my career right now, maybe I'm getting more like a C or a D. Well, maybe I can raise my GPA by getting an A in friendship. Or an A in family time. In other words, when my career may not be taking off, this might be a season where I can get an A in another category of my life. And for Martin Short, he came up with 9 categories. Now, me and some of my closest friends, we've come up with what we call our F goals. And the reason we call them our F goals is because these are categories in our life. They all happen, we made them, or they happen to start with the letter F. And so every year, especially towards the end of the year and then into the beginning of the new year, I review my past year's F goals, and then I plan out and share my New Year's F goals. And I'm usually doing that with friends. There's a specific friend, him and I get around a fire towards the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, and we review the past and kind of talk about what we want to do for the future to hold each other accountable. My wife and I usually sit down and we kind of review our goals, and I go through my F goals each year. And so what I have are really, for the year, seven categories of goals that all start with the letter F, and then I have an additional one that I'll explain here in the video. So let me go through these F goals, and you're welcome to take them, change them, adjust them. But to me, this is a process I do during the slow season toward the end of the year, ramping up into the new year. So the first category is fitness. By the way, I'm going to present these in no particular priority of order. Okay, so it just kind of has, as they came to mind, I put them down. I'm going to share with you. So fitness, I have fitness goals every year. I want to be a healthier version of me. And so there's different things I do. For one, I want to be able to do push-ups that are the number of my age and be able to do that many push-ups nonstop each year. So as I get older, I try to build my upper body strength. Also, there's certain weights I want to keep, certain bench press things and stuff like that. But either way, I put down my fitness goals for the year. So fitness, my personal fitness, is one of those 7 categories. The next F goal I want to go ahead and share with you is family goals. So I have certain family goals I put down. I have 3 kids. I want to make sure I spend quality time with each kid. Sometimes that means a daddy-daughter date night, and I have so many of those that are gold for the year. I have 2 sons, and I decided to mentor each one of them when they turn 16. And so there's certain amounts of time where we'll go and get coffee and we'll go through a book together, and I'm pouring into them and mentoring them. Date nights with my wife. We also plan at least 2 getaways, just her and I, for the year. Family vacations, anything that's quality time with family, I put them down as my family goals. And again, too, I look back at how did I do this last year? Or a lot of times I'm looking towards the end of the years when things are slowing down and going, ooh, I need to do another date night, or I need to spend some time with this child, or I need to do this. So a lot of times when I'm reviewing them, it shows me how close I am to completing them. And sometimes I'll play a little catch up there. And then, of course, I adjust them and tweak them going into the next year. All right, so we got fitness, we've got family. What else we got? Finance. Money's important. Look, the smartest and wealthiest people I know, they're good with people and they're good with numbers. And so it's good to be good with numbers. And so we have financial goals, things we want to pay off, things we want to invest in, things we want to have money set aside for or build towards. And so this all goes under finance goals. All right, so we got fitness, family, finance. Then we've got, I call it field. The field I'm in. When I was in vocational ministry, sometimes I think of it as the mission field I'm in. Now that I work bringing biblical principles into secular industries, it's just the field where I go out. So it's just a way to say my occupation, my vocation, what I do for work, where I get paid, where I go out and plant and harvest. So I just need to start with F. So we call it field goals. So these would be things, for me, it's the consulting agency. We have goals, we have milestones, we have revenue goals we want to hit, we have client goals we want to hit, we have products and services we want to develop and to do that. And so this is where I would put any work-related, any business or organizational goals under field. So we got fitness, family, finance, field. 5th one is fun. And I call it fun/fill up. So for me, fun fills me up. Fun fuels my tank. It goes with my personality. For some of my other friends, fun isn't a priority for them. They need to do it, but we call it fill up. What fills them up? What rejuvenates them? What gives them and gains them energy? So if it's fun for you, call it fun. They're all fun things for me that fuel me up. For other personalities, don't care as much about fun. It's just whatever fills you up. So you pick one of those F ones. So these are fun goals for me during the year. Maybe I want to. I like to go spearfishing. So many spearfishing trips. I like to go disc golfing. I like to try new hobbies. I like to go on adventures with friends and family members, or do some kayaking or camping or something like that. So this is where those kind of goals for the years. I want to make sure I'm having fun and it fills me up during the year. So we got fitness, we got family, we got finance, we got field, and we've got fun/fill up. The next one I have is friends. Look, I have a social personality. Friends mean a lot to me. I look at King David. He had, in the scriptures, there's over 40 men listed in David's life who could speak into his life, 37 of which were called his fighting men. And I've realized that I need fighting men in my life. I need good friends. And so in order to have good friends, you got to spend time and invest in those friendships. And so for me, I map out how I want to do that. Who do I want to spend time with? What do I want that time to look like? There's some friends that I go through books with. We get together quarterly and talk about what we're reading. Other friends where I like to plan trips with or adventures with, and we'll do that. Other friends that just they're great dreamers and they help me dream a bit, and so I put them down. And so I have kind of under friend goals. Who do I want to hang out with, and what do I want that hangout to look like and produce? And so those are my friend goals. All right, we've got fitness, family, finance, field, fun fill-ups, and friends. And number 7 is faith goals. Faith is extremely important to me. It's a major part of my life. And uh, and so, what does that look like? As I want to be a follower of Jesus, as I want to grow closer with God. I remember there was a trip. I took a 2 month vacation with my family where we toured 28 states in 8 weeks. And I remember on that vacation, I realized this going into this next season, I want to be Tom 2.0. Okay, so I wanted to be an upgraded version of me. And really, when it came down to it, I wanted to be healthy, wealthy, and whole, which means that if I'm going to be a 2.0 version, I need to get healthier, wealthier, and holier. And so faith is important. Faith is an important part of my life, and so I want to grow in my faith. I want to grow in my relationship with Christ. I want to grow in my character and integrity, and leave a legacy of faith, not just for my family and friends, but for my grandchildren and their children someday. Now, I told you I had a bonus one, and so we've got fitness, the 7 that I do every year, reflect on every year, and look forward to every year: fitness, family, finance, field, fun/fill up, friends, and faith. But then there's this 8th one, and I just call it future. In other words, these are goals that are things that will take more than a year to get to. All right, so these might be things I know before I die, I want to go skydiving. Or I want to go visit this country, or I want to, take my wife to this place, or I want to do. So these are just future goals that are bigger than 1 year. And so they have a category because they're still dreams, they're still goals, there's still things that want to happen, but they're just typically a little farther out than 1 year. So I put them in an 8th category I call future. So there you go. That's how I do it. Every year, again, as the season slows down towards the end of the year, November, December, I'm reviewing these goals and how I'm doing. If I got to play any catch up, I do for that year, or I try to. Let me say this too. I often have a lot of goals. I've never had a year where I've achieved 100% of them, because the year, it moves, it shifts, it changes. Sometimes you have no control over these things. However, since I've been doing this in my life, and I've probably been doing this to maybe close to a decade, it's amazing how many of these goals actually get fulfilled. And that's the point of goals. When you're aiming for something, it's amazing how close and how much of that you get. If you aim for nothing, that's what you get. And so I would encourage you. I don't take it as a loss if I don't hit every goal. I always take it as, man, I hit way more goals than I thought I would, and now I'm blessed. And so I would want to say that. So, but end of year, we review, what's actually taken place. I'm usually reviewing that with a friend, so I'm held accountable to that, especially if there's an important one. And sometimes I get called out on it, or what got in the way, and I have to really take a deep dive, and I have to pause, ponder, and plan out, well, what is this next year going to look like, and how will I better ensure that this goal happens? And then it kind of goes into the new year, where I have my new set of goals for that year, and we start kind of moving in that direction. So I hope this was helpful, and feel free to take it, use it, or edit it, whatever is helpful for you. But either way, I want to encourage you as you move into this next season to take the time to pause, to take the time to ponder and think, and to build out a plan. And if you want to use those F goals to do it, you're more than welcome. God bless you.